Well, good morning, everybody. I need no microphone. You might need me to talk to the microphone, but I'm thrilled to be here. You might ask yourself, of all the things we could do, why would we have a guy representing the economic development community be the first ones to come? And I applaud the LGA and all of you that support the lake in your continued evolution and your open-mindedness about the fact that we can be even better than we have been, and we need to be even better than we have been, and we're constantly looking to build this community. And I'm an example of that. I think 5 years ago, you might not have seen somebody in my role here in this way, but our economy, our future, a sustainable community is fundamentally based right here on the lake. You know that. Those of you that have lived your whole lives know that in your heart. Why we separate these things is not productive. And Eric and the board have, I think, created, they've eliminated an unnecessary wall. And I want to share with you why. Traditionally, we've thought about the lake in terms of our own interactions with it. As a homeowner, maybe as a hospitality, community member, we think about its impact around the things that most directly affect us. But the truth is that the lake itself has value that goes well beyond that. A lot of work has gone on recently to figure out, well, what does a clean water actually mean to a homeowner? What does it actually mean to a business owner? And we think about that in terms of those that are most proximate. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that. There's some remarkable science that's emerged in the last few years that would put a tangible result, a quantifiable number to some of the things you already intrinsically know. But the real horizon is out there beyond that. That's what does it mean to somebody who isn't in our community? What does it mean to somebody who lives in the state of New York? What does it mean to a business 40 miles south of here? Why does that matter? Well, let's start with, this is right off the LGA's webpage, okay? This is the foundational stuff. So there's no disputing the enormous central role that the lake plays in our community and in our economy. Here's some of the numbers, $2 billion of economic activity. 3 million people come here with the entire intention to come to Lake George. It is the gateway beyond. Everything that is north of us, oftentimes to somebody who lives south of us, is seen as Lake George, even if they're referring to something that is 60 miles north and west of us. We are the entry point. Okay, I live on the lake. Tell me a little bit about why water quality matters to me, not just in terms of my feelings, but in terms of the values of my property, the values to my community. I got a pile of studies here, and I'm glad to share them with any of you. But these are some of the findings from those studies. In 2015, the University of Vermont basically did what I consider to be the foundational study on lakes of this area. And what they're saying is that there's a range between 3 and 37% that property increases around water clarity. And they define what water clarity is in that study. They were the first ones that really looked at water in this region and put a dollar value to it. Most recently, there was a study just this spring, and Eric and the LGA have done a really good job, I think, of starting to share that. But that builds on this, and it's basically putting direct numbers, thousands of dollars worth of numbers, directly and linearly correlated to water clarity based on several scientific measures. There's, if you want to get into this science, I'm happy to share it. And there's even smarter people than me to talk about it. So water clarity in terms of, a basic clarity method that's used worldwide and also specific to phosphorus levels. And when you look at those two things, they've put a number on exactly what does that mean to a homeowner. I think this is just the beginning, though. If you look outside of our region, There are people trying to put values to this all over the country and all over the world. I looked at a study that was done in the Midwest, and it basically, surveyed people from across the Midwest. Some of them were associated with the Great Lakes, some of them were associated with other inland lakes in the Midwest. But basically what they found, no matter what lake it was, the single biggest contributor, the most important aspect as to whether somebody went to that place was water quality. So what we experience is universal. We believe that this is the queen of all lakes, and its most definable attribute is its pristine nature, and has been. So I think we can start by saying that there is a definable economic value to you as a homeowner, to you as a business owner, and increasingly to us as economic developers in the community. We now recognize that this lake is not just some tourism site that is no different than an amusement park or some other kind of attraction. It is a fundamental, priceless asset that we are nevertheless going to try to provide value to, but it defines our identity, and it baselines whatever anything is worth here. It starts right there. Now, unfortunately, you can look at the economics the other way. And I just took a smattering, but there is as much research about this as there is about the positive qualities of water. And that is that when it goes south, it immediately starts to have an economic impact. Now, we all know this inherently. And in fact, our partners here at the Jefferson Project are working with other bodies of water that have already experienced this. I used to live in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I used to go visit at Chautauqua. I know what that lake looked like when it was at its best, and I know what it looks like now, and I know what the effect has been on the entire economy between Buffalo and Erie, Pennsylvania. I can feel it when I go to talk to people and see it there. But here's some numbers. When it goes the other way, there's a linear correlation that says property values are lost. Business valuations are lost, tax base is lost, and it can be clarified specifically to levels of clarity and to levels of phosphorus. So this science that you're going to hear about today, it has meaning that goes beyond what we feel like when we're on the lake. This is essential to us, just like developing workforce, just like attracting business. Protecting this water is an economic investment for our entire region. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about why and what we're doing about that. This chart is the beginnings of some work that we did with a graduate student in applied economics who came and spent more than a year at our organization. And the majority of the work that he did was around helping Eric and I figure out whether what we felt really had some economic basis. And he started to chart out essentially every value that we could start to brainstorm around the quality of water and the lake. Now, some of these are pretty straightforward. As a property owner or as a business owner, you'll see the first two categories. There's a number of things that directly contribute economically to either our tourism economy or to the property value base of our community. That's what's in the first two columns. But the next three columns are seminal. Nobody's really ever done the work here to decide, well, what is it worth in other dimensions when we go beyond the borders of the lake? So if you look at this chart, right in the middle, that indirect value, it says impact to businesses not directly on the lake. If I run a business in Albany, if I run a business in Saratoga, does Lake George matter to me? It does, but we've got to go do some work to figure out exactly how far and how deep that benefit goes. Municipal tax revenues. The tax base of all upstate New York, certainly north of Albany, is tied to several fundamental assets, and the leader of those is Lake George. I'm going to show you in a little bit evidence of that. If you continue, the future value of the lake needs to be, I think, not just defined, but invested in. Eric and I talk about something called the blue economy. You just saw in the film remarkable work that has gone on here around Lake George to protect this lake. And yet we're missing the opportunity to take that and turn that into enterprise. Those gentlemen and people who have worked diligently to reduce salt, the work they have done deserves not only a wider audience, it deserves to birth industries that help other people do this. If somebody's going to modify a DPW truck to do brine, it should be here. Because that's where the people know how to do it. It's where they actually had the thought. We don't want somebody in New Hampshire capture, taking the idea and turning it into a business, that business should be here. And it should be started by the people who did it. But nobody's meeting them halfway to say, here, let me help you. That's the work that we're going to step into. Climate refuge was mentioned before. My previous life, before I stepped into the EDC, was I led a company called Just Water. Just Water came here because of the perceived abundance and non-competition for fresh water and the idea of reinventing that product. I see several people who I met during that period of time in my life, Kirby's one of them, and who helped with that idea. That whole notion, I still am part of the whole climate refuge world. Partners of mine that helped establish that business are on the stage at places like Davos and worldwide events. Every time they have one, one of the regions that's listed as a defined climate refuge for the entire world is the Adirondack and Lake George region. It's on the charts. Essentially, these are places that are identified as having assets that are future-proofed right now. Some of the most dramatic effects of climate change, and yet we don't recognize the value of being one and the investment that we should be making in order to sustain. All of these things are work that's in front of us. That's part of why I'm here. Now, I wanted to give you a sense of the fact that as much as Eric and I believe this, there are lots of other people who believe it. You may not even know it, but they're running around telling people it by the way that they are behaving. The first chart there is CapNY's homepage. CapNY is the effort by the capital region of New York to essentially put itself on the map to millennials, to attract young people here. So instead of going to Austin or instead of the Bay Area in California, this is where you should go. Look at the pictures that they show. Literally, 2/3 of the content on that page is about Saratoga, Glens Falls, and Lake George. And the most compelling imagery that they have is of Lake George. Now, if you go down below that, I just went to Regeneron's, who's one of our largest area employers, emerged from almost nothing to essentially now one of the 10 largest employers in the capital region and continues to grow. They have more than 200 open jobs right now in the capital region. And when they're trying to attract people here to step into those jobs, what is the picture that they are showing? They're in Rensselaer. And the lens to the world is of Lake George. They are our community. They're just not here yet. But to the rest of the world, they're saying, hey, we are Lake George. In fact, when you you join us, you're joining the Lake George community. There's an opportunity there for us. I think we need to better connect with them. They represent more surface area. They certainly represent more resource, and they represent extension of what you already believe. Now, we could talk about this all day, and we're not gonna, because there's more important things than what I have to share. But I do want you to know that this is not a pass-through by the EDC. Okay, and I think we're really just at the tip of the spear of the rest of the entire economic and political ecosystem starting to rediscover the value of what you already know. We've got work to do, and we're committed to it. And me being on the board of the LGA is an example of what we hope to be a credible long-term partnership and commitment. There is no sustainable community here without Lake George. And the value of that economy, the value of that community is directly linked to the health of Lake George. So this to us is as much an economic issue as it is a social, environmental, or any other label we could put on it. And we got a lot of work to do to better define that so that we can both marshal the resources and also bring more people to bear on this. But I wanted to also mention to you that you are the front, you are the advanced team. You are the people who are already doing the work or already understand that. In order for your commitment and your investment to really find roost, we've got to figure out how to reinforce you with even more. If we're going to protect the headwaters and the tributaries, it's going to take partners that go beyond the shores of the lake. If we're going to garner the resources of the state to build on the work of the Jefferson Project, continue investing in a world-class way, we need the resources of the state and the national entities. We need to raise our gaze. That means that we are going to build on your shoulders. We are going to climb on the back of all of you who have been doing this much of your lives. So I first want to thank you for it. There would be no opportunity like this if you hadn't already been committing to it. I'd certainly like to thank the LGA for being open to the idea that we could add value and that we could be a partner. And then I would like to, as it was said before, I would like to invite you into this dialogue with us. Help us figure out how to do this well. Help us figure out, as we start to organize this data, what makes sense and what still doesn't make sense to you, what you think is still missing. And let's all together figure out how to do what we've already been doing even better, even stronger. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day because I think you're going to find out that there's some amazing things that are right at your fingertips right now. And then let's spend the next 10 or 20 years building the future that we know we can.